Hello, everyone. Thank you. We are so excited to be here with you today to talk all about GitHub Copilot and how you can extend it to make it even more powerful. My name is Brigit Murtaugh, and I'm a product manager on the VS Code team here at Microsoft.
My name is Joyce Er, and I'm a software engineer here on the VS Code team at Microsoft.
All right, so kicking things off, we're going to spend about 1 minute on slides, and then most of our presentation is all going to be different demos using GitHub Copilot. So we hope you're excited for some demos today. As I'm sure you might have heard once or twice by this point in build, GitHub Copilot is an AI pair programmer tool that's going to help you write code faster and smarter in Visual Studio Code. You can use it in VS Code via the Copilot extension, as we show there on the right. As promised, only about 1 minute on slides. Let's go ahead and dive into our first demo. So let's pop over to wonderful. OK, so to set some context, for our demos today, I'm going to be using VS Code Insiders because I love getting all the latest features and fixes, especially when I'm doing anything with GitHub Copilot. I want to be on the cutting edge of AI. For our application today, Joyce and I are also going to be demoing the same app to keep things a little bit consistent. At the top of my VS Code here, if I zoom in a little bit more, you can see it's called University Courses app. So I could guess that this app has something to do about some different university classes, maybe their data. I think there's some sort of database involved. I'd love to go ahead and learn more. So since I'm pretty new to this app, Joyce recently shared it with me, I'd love to go ahead and familiarize myself with it a little bit more. How would I typically do that? I'd probably go ahead and look through the files and see, OK, cool, there's a README. And taking a glance here, I can see, OK, it is based on an Azure SQL database. I could kind of explore the files here. But I'd love to get some help to onboard to this app just a little bit faster. So I think that'd be a great fit for GitHub Copilot. Now, popping over to the extensions view, just want to double check that I have the right extensions installed. When I search up Copilot, I'm going to see a couple of different extensions. So I have GitHub Copilot here. And this is going to give me what's known as ghost text completions or suggestions. If you ever typed in VS Code and get some gray suggestions there while using Copilot, that comes from this extension. Now, when I get this extension, I'm also going to get the GitHub Copilot chat extension, which, as the name would suggest, is going to let me actually go ahead and chat and talk with Copilot and get some help with it. All right, so I think learning a little bit more about my code base sounds like a really good fit for Copilot chat. So let's go ahead and try it out. So when I install these extensions, I'm going to get this nice chat view here. Copilot's already very friendly. Hi, Brigit, how can I help you? And a trick that I love doing in my setup is I move my chat view over to the secondary sidebar in VS Code. I think this gives me a really nice layout where I can still see my files or my source control on the left. I can see my code in the middle. And then I can chat with Copilot on the right. So I have this really nice balance. So I see Copilot's already suggesting a question that I can use to interact with it, which is help. What can you do? So awesome. I get this really nice overview of all these different possibilities of things I can use or do with GitHub Copilot. One that stands out to me is this at workspace. And if I continue scrolling, I can see that there's things like at VS Code or at terminal. These are known as participants. And they're basically going to be experts in different kinds of domains or areas. So starting off with at workspace, like you might get from the name, it's going to be an expert in my VS Code workspace and the files that I have open. So let's go ahead, since I want to learn about this app. I'm going to type at, and I'll see the set of participants that I already have available to me. So at workspace, what does my app do? Now, this is basically telling GitHub Copilot to grab relevant information from my code base based on a rough description of what I'm looking for. And now it's telling me some more insights. So it's saying, hey, it looks like this is an ASP.NET Core app. And what's really cool is it's even pointing me to specific files in my project. So I can verify, hey, these are real files that exist. It's not hallucinating. And I can dig in to learn a little bit more about them. So for instance, I can go ahead and click on that. OK, so now that I've learned a little bit more about my workspace, I've realized that, OK, this is a .NET app. And I don't know if I have the right extensions installed for .NET. So I think this sounds like a great question for the VS Code participant. So I'll say, at VS Code, how do I install recommended extensions? And as I type that, now I'm going to get the expertise in VS Code that GitHub Copilot can leverage. And really cool, it even gives me a button so that I can interact with that command a little bit more quickly, saving me some more time. OK, awesome. So now that I've done some chatting with Copilot, I've familiarized myself a little bit more with my code base and even my VS Code setup, I'm probably going to go ahead and actually start coding on my app. So I'll close out the chat panel for right now. And when I've been working on this app, and I think previous times that I've talked to Copilot, one of the interesting files is this file that defines the data for my application and some of the properties for it. So as I'm working on this file, I might find over time, like, I think I want to add some new properties. Like maybe the courses for my app should also have a professor. I think that sounds like a pretty reasonable change. I'd love to be able to get Copilot's help directly in my file so I can really stay in the zone while I'm coding. So in order to do that, I think that's a great fit for inline chat. So I can use Control-I or Command-I, and now I'm going to be able to chat with GitHub Copilot directly in my file. I can totally type in natural language, or I can use some additional slash commands. And so I could have used these slash commands in the chat panel, and I can also use a set of them here in line, which is going to help Copilot understand the intent of what I want to do a little bit faster. But I don't have to use those. I could totally just type out natural language, and I could say, courses should have a professor. Now, as Copilot thinks about that, it's going to be able to suggest code changes directly within my file. And I think this looks pretty good. It looks like it added a professor property here and here, which seems reasonable to me. I'll go ahead and accept those changes. And now, as I continue working on my project, and maybe I want to add some other properties over time, I might be typing, and before I could even finish that thought, I'm getting that gray ghost text suggestion that I had mentioned earlier. And when I get one of these suggestions, I can hover over it, and there may be multiple suggestions, as we can see in this case. And I can choose to flip through them. I could accept the whole suggestion or just part of it, whatever I think is the best fit for my project and makes me the most efficient here. I don't think I need any of those changes at the moment, so I'll remove it for now. And cool, I'm pretty happy with this very initial change that I made, so I'd love to go ahead and commit it to my repo. If I open up the source control view in VS Code, see there's actually this sparkle icon here in the commit message box. And that's going to be an integration with GitHub Copilot where it can generate a commit message for me. As you use GitHub Copilot in your editor, you'll find these different kinds of like sparkle or other entry points where we're trying to include AI to speed up different tasks in your development and really help you stay in the zone while you're coding. So this was just a quick overview of how you can use Copilot in VS Code, whether it's via chat or completions or some of our other actions. I'm really excited to hear your feedback as you try out GitHub Copilot more in VS Code as well. So we saw that as I was talking with Copilot, it can have expertise in different areas, whether it's my workspace or VS Code development in general. But there's times that it could use a little bit more help, or I'm looking to do something a little bit more niche. So for instance, in this scenario, I know that my app is connected to a database. And if I want to maybe modify or query the data in that database, I don't think Copilot really knows about it at this point. So Joyce, is there anything we can do to get some more insight there for Copilot?
Yes, absolutely. So as you all likely know, VS Code has a rich extension ecosystem that allows anybody to build an extension that'll extend our lightweight core editor experience with additional custom functionality. And our chat experience is no different. Over the course of the last few months, we've been working on a set of new extension APIs for VS Code that'll allow anyone to integrate with our Copilot chat experience in order to ground it with custom data that is hugely personal and custom to your immediate scenarios directly inside your editor. So today, over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to show you an example of an experience that you can build out, and then we're going to dive into the actual code that enables that experience right here in this session. And by the end of it, you'll be an expert in building your own chat participant. So let's switch over. And as you can see here, I'm in the same application that Brigit had open. I have the University Courses app here. One difference is that on the left-hand side, I have this SQL Server view. And this is provided by the Microsoft SQL extension for VS Code if you haven't already tried it out. It is great. And as you can see here, I've got these tables that are loaded up with information about my courses and modules. Now, suppose I'd like to write a SQL query that is going to pull together all of the data from these tables. If I just go into Copilot chat right now and I say, generate a query that combines all the data from all my tables in my SQL database, and I go ahead and let Copilot think about that, it's going to give me a fairly generic answer. And that makes sense because it doesn't have access to my SQL database right now. But now suppose I had access to a chat participant that had expertise about the editor context that I had, including my SQL database connection. And as you can see here, I do. It generates SQL queries from natural language. And if I go ahead and hit submit, we're going to read database context for this chat participant, and then we're going to pass that along to a large language model that backs this experience behind the scenes. In this case, now it gives me a SQL query that is specific to my database context right here. you can see that it references the courses, modules, and so on tables, as well as the column names within that tables. So it has knowledge of the structure of my database. And if I go ahead and click on this Run Query button, a couple of things are going to happen relatively quickly. We're going to get a new SQL editor that contains this query that was suggested, and then we're going to actually execute that query live against our SQL database connection to prove that it all actually works end to end. So if I go ahead and hit Submit, you can see here that my SQL query is on the left, and the center here is the result of actually executing that live query against my database, showing that with Copilot Chat and custom expertise with chat participants, we're able to build out experiences that are directly actionable inside your editor and which enable you to iterate much more quickly and with great confidence. Awesome. So I hope that was motivating for the next 20 minutes of live coding.
I think the clap showed that it was. I think you already set the bar really high.
Awesome. I'll have here from here. So let's switch over into our code editor here. And for those of you who've done VS Code extension development before, this is no different than our usual boilerplate VS Code extension. I've gone ahead and filled out all these standard properties here. So you can see I've got my publisher, and I've got the name of the extension. One thing that I want to call out is this is a normal VS Code extension, but it does have extension dependencies. So it integrates with the Copilot Chat extension, and it also integrates with the Microsoft SQL extension in order to pull in that SQL database context. Now let's go ahead and start telling VS Code about our chat participant. And before I do that, I'm just going to show you that I have the extension development host running here. And as you can see, if I go in here and type @ you don't see the Microsoft SQL extension here. And that's just really proving that we're starting from 0. So here, I'm going to go ahead and start saying that I have a chat participant, and I'm going to give it an ID. It's going to be VS Code MS SQL Chat. The name here is going to be MS SQL, and the description is going to be generate SQL queries from natural language. And now that I have that, that's enough to tell VS Code that our chat participant exists. Next, we're going to switch over into the extension.ts file, and this is where we're going to declare our chat participant in actual code, and this is TypeScript, of course. So first of all, we're going to go into the new VS Code chat API namespace, and we're going to call create chat participant. The ID here is going to match what we had in the package.json file. And here, we're just going to get in our handler a couple of interesting pieces of information about the request that we received from our user. So first of all, we need to know what the user asked. And the way that we do that is by looking at request.prompt. And that is just going to be the string that the user actually entered in the chat. Pretty simple. And now, in order to forward that along to a language model, we can use the new VS Code LM language model namespace to select a chat model. And the argument that we pass here is just going to be a language model chat selector, and this is our way of allowing you to specify which specific model you want to talk to. So Copilot Chat ships with a number of different language models, and you have access as an extension author to the exact same models that we ship in Copilot Chat itself. So today, that latest is going to be GPT-4. We've got GPT-4 Turbo coming online really soon, and as soon as it's available, we will also have GPT-4o. So look forward to that, and in the meantime, I'm just going to go ahead and say that I want to have access to the GPT-4 family of models, and we're going to save that off. And once I've got that going, I can go ahead and send a request. And I need to, of course, await that and make this entire handler async. And once I've done that, then I can go ahead and send a request to this language model that I've got access here to here. And the way that we communicate with language models is with an array of chat messages. So I'll define that in just a second and then fill out the rest of these parameters in a bit. And the way that we're going to declare this array of messages is using a utility class from VS Code language model chat message .user. And that's just going to be a user chat message representing the user's actual query. And we're going to pass that along to the language model here. So once I've done that, I'm going to save that result off. And now we want to know what the language model actually said back to us. The way that we do that is by looking at the chat request text property. And this is going to be an async iterable of just tokens that get streamed back to us. And we have built-in support in the extension API for actually streaming all of this data back progressively to the chat UI so that as a user, you never have to wait for all of that data to come back to you. The way that we do that is by iterating over that. So let's go ahead and iterate over our stream of data. And you'll notice this response object here. This is a chat response stream. And if I go ahead and take a look at what IntelliSense has to say about it, there are a couple of different things that you can put into the chat UI representing actions as well as data that come back from the language model. In this case, we are just going to put in Markdown. And with all of that being said, we now have everything we need to address a question to our chat participant in the chat UI and receive a response that gets reported in the UI. So let's go ahead and reload our extension development host here and try out our chat participant for the first time.
Now, while that loads, you had mentioned, so you picked GPT-4. Is there any reason I wouldn't just pick the latest model and pick GPT-4?
Yeah, the answer is actually latency. So for example, one of our most popular features is the commit message generation feature, and we want that to be really quick and snappy. And as we all know, GPT-4 can sometimes be a little bit slower, and so GPT 3.5 might actually be a favorable choice in cases where you're looking to just reduce the perceived latency for the user. So let's go ahead and make sure our SQL database is alive. And now if I go into chat, I can type @ and you'll see that I have this MS SQL agent that wasn't there before. I can go ahead and say hi and receive a response that's powered by a language model. So that's really cool, just to get started with. But now if I go ahead and ask it for a SQL query, generate a SQL query that combines data from all my tables, it's not actually going to do much better than the base experience that I showed you at the very beginning of my demo. And the reason for that is we haven't given it any special context. So it's going to do just as poorly as the first time that we tried. And let's switch back into the extension and make sure we fix that. So the way that we're going to do this is I have this utility function that is just going to call into the Microsoft SQL extension to get database context. What this context is going to be is just a set of creation scripts for actually setting up that database and the tables that I already had loaded up. And it's just going to be concatenated to the front of my user message, and that's all we're going to do. And then we can reload the window and see if Copilot Chat does any better.
Now, if I want to grab one of these extensions, would I just get it from the VS Code Marketplace, or where would I get that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can already publish a VS Code extension that leverages this chat API to our extension marketplace today. If you checked out April and Jason's talk right before this, they explained how you can build one of these agents, chat participant experiences using GitHub Apps. And here we're covering how you can do that with the VS Code extension marketplace and publishing it there. So you can already do this today, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. But now I'm back here in my extension development host. As a recap, all I did was put in those creation scripts into a user message. And now if I go ahead and hit submit, it's going to, and as we can see, this is taking a little bit of time, so we can improve that slightly right after this. But we'll get a language model response that actually is context aware of the exact structure of my databases. So that's really, really simple. That's all you have to do. And as we saw, that took a little bit of time. So one thing that we can do here is to tell the user actually that progress is happening. And so let's go ahead and say that we are reading database context. And that'll just give the user some indication that we're doing work behind the scenes. So now that I have that, one of the missing pieces from my original demo is we'd like to have that run query button that integrates with the Microsoft SQL extension to allow me to run and validate the query that was suggested. In order to do that, though, we have to actually be sure that there is a SQL query in the response from the language model, because we might have just gotten lucky. So let's go ahead and also make sure that we include an instruction to that effect. And so I'm just going to add a new user message here. And I'm going to say you should suggest a SQL query for my task that begins with triple backtick SQL and ends with triple backtick. And then now that we have some guarantee that there is going to be a markdown code block containing a SQL query in the answer, we can go ahead and make sure we save that off. And then concatenate all of the data that we get from the response stream into that variable. And then once we're done with that, let's write a little regex to actually keep track of all of the, to actually pull that query out. And so we're going to look for anything that's not a new line, and we're going to then look for a new line here, and then we're going to make sure that we match on all of the data inside the code block, followed by a new line, and then triple backtick. And then once we're done with that, we're going to execute that regex against the data that we got. And let's save that off into a match variable. And then if our match was successful, then we can go ahead and put a button into the response here. And the title is going to be run query. The command will be MSSQL chat run query. We'll define that as well in just a moment here. And then we are going to pass along the query that we actually received from the language model. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and also register our command here. And this is just going to be a regular VS Code command. There's nothing special about this. So run query, and then in the handler here, we get a SQL query. And all we're going to do to execute this is, again, we've got a utility function beforehand that is going to integrate with the Microsoft SQL extension and actually create that SQL editor and run it against our database connection. So with all of that, I think we have everything we need to replicate that original experience. So let's go ahead and reload the window one more time and see our extension working end to end.
And for the API that you're using, I'm able to use that today as an extension author?
Yes, absolutely. So we are going to have this API. It's finalized. It's available in Insiders. It will come to VS Code stable in July. And so for now, if you would like to build your own extension using our latest APIs, please be sure to be on the latest Insiders as well. All right. And so now I am here. I am going to ask my question again. And as you can see, it's now got that progress indicator saying that we're reading database context. And we're going to let the language model think about that. And then we get our run query button as before. And if I go ahead and close that out and execute my query, you can see that it worked exactly the same as before. And we just built that experience out in a couple dozen lines of code. Sweet. And since we have a little bit more time, I also want to share a couple of more things that we can do with the VS Code extension ecosystem. So because this is a regular VS Code extension, one of the things that I can do is just integrate smart actions like Brigit was telling you about earlier throughout the editor. And so, for example, I just showed you how you can ask any question about SQL inside chat. But suppose I want to make it easy for anyone on my team to be able to onboard to my SQL database. Now, it would be really nice if I could just right-click on this SQL Explorer here and have an action that would give me an overview of the structure of my database. So let's go ahead and actually implement that. And again, this is real quick and easy. So going back into my extension code here, I'm just going to register yet another regular VS Code command. And this one is going to be summarize database. And in this handler here, all we're going to do is execute a built-in VS Code command, workbench.action.open.chat.open. And we are going to address a question directly to our MS SQL participant here, generate a summary of my database. And now that I've done that, I'm going to switch back over into the package.json file and actually register that action to the context menu to make sure that it shows up. So the way that we do that is by looking at menus, and we have view item context. And here we are going to say that we have a command. The command is going to be summarize database. And we want to make sure that doesn't show up on every single context menu. So we're going to do that whenever the view is the object explorer. And the view item is either server or database. And let's close that out here. And we can also have to actually register this command. So let's put in that registration right here. That's just going to be an array. And we're going to put in one entry here. The command is also going to be summarize database. Got to take out those extra quotes right there. And the title of this action is going to be summarize database. Oh, and let's also make sure that we give this action a group so that it appears in its own category. All right. And now that we have all that, let's reload the extension development host for the final time today and try out our new context menu action. So database online, right-click here. You can see I have this summarized database action that wasn't there before. And if I select that, it addresses a question directly to my chat participant, and that's just a 2-click operation to get a high-level natural language summary of my database structure. Really quick and simple. And to recap, what we just showed is how you can extend your Copilot chat experience with custom functionality to ground it in context that's available inside your editor in order to provide an experience that's far more integrated and personalized and actionable for your scenarios. So our APIs are available for you to build with today. We can't wait to see what you build.
Wow, so that was really impressively fast. And I also feel like the audience should know that you did all of this with a broken arm, live coding.
This is true. My left arm is currently broken.
So that is just to say that she can code it live on stage with a broken arm. We were trying to make this as attainable as possible for everyone. But really, I think it's so impressive how integrated this is, how powerful it is, and how quick you can get something up and running just in about 10, 20 minutes here. But we don't just want you to take our word for how awesome this experience is and how powerful it can really make your extensions. So we've been collaborating with a few different partners who've built out some really cool experiences. And we're fortunate to have a couple of them here with us today to talk a little bit more. So first, I'd love to welcome to the stage Gaurab Aryal, who's a senior product manager at MongoDB.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Glad to have you here. So I think we have a recording of your experience. I'd love if you could just walk us through it.
Yeah, for sure. So MongoDB for VS Code is one of our most beloved developer tool for our MongoDB customers. It has roughly around 1.5 million downloads today in the marketplace. And the goal of the extension is to allow developers to build applications faster with MongoDB, as it allows you to connect to your MongoDB clusters and explore your clusters directly from the IDE. So there are several use cases that we found for the Copilot participant, such as answering schema and MongoDB documentation questions. But the one that I want to show you today is the one that resonated the most with our customers, which is generating queries from natural language. So here I have a restaurant reviewing application that I'm working on. And more specifically, I'm working on an endpoint that allows me to return the address of a restaurant with the highest average inspection score. So in order to do this, I'm going to go ahead and lean on the MongoDB participant, Copilot participant. So here, I'm going to go ahead and open the Copilot chat. I'm going to call out to the MongoDB participant, use the /query command, and I'm going to ask it to generate that query for me. So give it a second. Once the participant returns the query for me, the participant is deeply embedded into the actual extension itself, so I can go ahead and open that in the playgrounds. I'm going to specify the database that I want to run it against. And once that is specified, I'm going to run this query just to test and make sure that participant gave me a query that actually works. So here, it's returned the address for me with the highest average inspection score, including the score itself. And now I can go ahead and copy that query and paste it back into the endpoint that I was building. So in the back end, all it's doing is fetching the schema from the connected cluster, passing it back to the LLM, and that way it's generating a query that is accurate for me to go ahead and paste it back into my application code. So that is it. There are several other use cases that we're super excited to try with the participant, and we can't wait for you to also try it out and give us feedback.
Awesome. Thank you so much for showing that off to us and for your team's really cool work here. Is there anything specific that's coming up that you want to call out or that your team's really excited about?
Yeah, there's several things that we're super excited about, and there's some low-hanging fruits, such as being able to answer schema questions, documentation questions, and debug slow queries. But the one that resonates the most with us and the one that we're super excited about is actually connecting this back to Atlas, which is MongoDB's managed cloud offering. And here, what we want to do is bring the recommendations that we show from production workload in Atlas down to the line of code in VS Code, and use the participant to actually help users debug some slow performance issues with MongoDB directly in the IDE.
Oh, that sounds really cool. It sounds like a really nice way to integrate everything into your VS Code environment.
Yeah.
Okay. And when can users try this out?
Yeah, you can actually go ahead to our VS Code extension website to sign up for a private preview right now. But in a couple of months, you should be able to get your hands on this.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Gaurab, for being here and for your team's awesome work.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
And we are fortunate to have a second partner here with us today. So I'd love to welcome McCrystal, Engineering Manager at Stripe, to the stage. Hey, Ian, good to have you here.
Hey, Brigit, so good to be here.
All right, so I think we have a recording of your experience, too. I'd love for you to walk us through it.
So this is 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗻. It's a fake company that sells creative tools. It's a beautiful Next.js and Tailwind website. But currently, there's no way to buy anything. As you can see here, we have a dashboard, some products to sell, but the buy button doesn't do anything. Let's fix that. If we jump over to VS Code, we can ask the Stripe chat participant, how do I add a checkout page to my website? This is talking to Stripe's models, trained on all of our documentation, our sample code, our best practices. It's giving us an overview of the various options, and it suggests to us that it can walk us through adding an embedded checkout form. Let's do that. OK, here we go. So the first thing it wants us to do is add a backend. That makes sense. It gives us a description. It gives us some suggested code. If that looks good, we can push the Create File button and add that code into our project as a new file. Looks like a standard Next.js route handler. That looks good. OK, next thing. It wants us to add a front end. Again, it gives us a description of what we're going to do. It gives us some suggested code. And if all of this looks good to us, at the bottom, there's an Update Front End button, which we can push, and it'll insert that code into the correct file. Let's take a look. All right, we've got our imports. We've got the API call that's calling the route we just added. And here we have the Stripe-provided React component being mounted. So we save that and jump back into the browser. We can push that buy button, and there we have it. A beautiful Stripe checkout form embedded in our website, and it works. So to recap, we use the Stripe chat participant to go from no payments integration to a working checkout page in just a few minutes without leaving VS Code.
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks for walking us through that. Yeah, I think I'm an applause for that one. Super cool. I'd love to learn a little bit more. How has the development experience been when your team's working on this participant?
Yeah, totally. It's been really, really great, actually. So we started working on this at the beginning of the year. We were able to get to a working prototype in just a few weeks. And then we've been tuning it and trying to make it really good since then. The APIs are really simple and easy to work with, and your team has been great. So can't ask for more than that.
Right, well, that is great to hear. And I'm sure a lot of folks are excited to try this out. When can folks try this out?
Yeah, so the first version of this will be available to insiders next month, and then to all Stripe VS Code extension users in July.
OK, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ian, for being here and for your team's really cool work.
Thank you for having us.
All right. So I think that brings us to our final couple of slides here. So to do a quick recap, we saw how you can use GitHub Copilot today out of the box in the extensions in Visual Studio Code, and how you can use our extension APIs to extend it to make it even more powerful for your different kinds of scenarios. We have a bunch of different resources that our team has been working on, whether it's docs or sample extensions, videos, and we also really welcome your feedback. So we've included a repo there where you can file different issues, and we're really excited to hear from you as you try out these different experiences. We've also included different ways they can contact Joyce and I think we're also going to have some time here at the end for some questions, and we'll also stick around at the end. So thank you so much for being here and for your time, and as always, happy coding. If there's any questions, I think that we have the mic stands there where folks can run mics. I think whatever works.
Yeah, go ahead. Hey, so everything, guys. Oh. Okay,
After you.
Thanks. So everything I saw is awesome, but is this available for Visual Studio Classic?
For
Yes.
Visual Studio.
So you're referring to the Visual Studio product?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was actually a great session about this by 𝗬𝗲𝗀𝗃 yesterday, and highly recommend that you check out the recording for that. There is also extensibility for VS.
Okay, thanks.
So in the extension, I know that we invoked the GPT-4 model to create the response to send it back. But can you just return raw data from the extension and leverage the Copilot chat model to format it into natural language, or is it kind of expected to use a model and return that?
Yeah, you don't have to use a model behind the scenes. Yeah, so you can absolutely create a chat participant that is not backed by a language model as well.
Got it.
All right. And if there's no more questions, totally good. And we will stick around, and we're excited to hear from you. So thank you so much again.